Okay, this is covering structure with plaster bandages. First thing you need to know is how to cut your plaster bandages. So I have a roll of plaster bandage, a big roll like this, in a tote in the back of the room. You need to cut it in the back of the room in that tote to keep it from dumping plaster everywhere and to keep it dry. You don't want this big roll near any water, because if you get it wet, that whole section that you got wet won't be able to be used again. So, to cut this, use scissors that are in the tote as well. And if you want long strips, you can cut the whole length across. So I just cut one long strip here. If you want smaller strips, you can cut it down like this. It just depends on what you need. That's all there is to cutting plaster bandages. When you're done, please kind of close up the tote. I don't have the tote here, but close it up. And make sure it stays away from water. There are some bandages already cut in the tote as well. You're welcome to use those. So you can grab what you need as you need them. For my project, I'm going to need some smaller pieces, so I'm going to grab those smaller pieces I cut. And I'm going to make these kind of skinnier but longer. Now I have wax paper down so that I don't have as much of a mess to deal with. But I'm not going to have my scissors anywhere near the water either, because that will make a big mess of plaster all over the scissors as well. So make sure all cutting is done over near the tote somewhere. Is preferable. Okay? Now, I have a cup of warm water, a container of warm water. As warm as you can handle it. The warmer water will activate the bandage, the plaster in the bandage better than the cooler water would. Let's see if I can get more in the picture in here. Okay, so I have my warm water. I have my project here that I'm going to cover in plaster bandages. So now I'm going to put this on top of the wax paper so I don't have a big mess to clean up later. I'm going to take a bandage, I'm going to dip it in the water, let it soak for a few seconds, and then I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to kind of rub it to get that plaster to spread around. And then I'm going to start putting it on where I want it to go, my first piece, and then I'm going to smooth it off, make sure all those little holes in the plaster get filled with plaster. I'm going to do a second layer, a second piece, and then I'm going to make sure I overlap that some, because they will hold better if I overlap. I can take bigger pieces for like this big space down here. Do the same thing. I'm going to kind of spread that plaster around a little. And then I'm going to lay it on here. And get that the holes to all fill in and kind of smooth it off. And then I don't want that cardboard edge to show. So I'm going to make sure I kind of wrap this a little bit around the bottom so it gets that edge. So that I would continue working on, building up all my pieces with plaster. If I wanted to do a round thing, I have a balloon sitting on top of a container, and I can do the same idea. So I'm going to dip it, spread it around a little, and then I'm just going to coat the balloon with those plaster bandages. I'm going to overlap a little bit. Get it to spread around, and you can see I'm making a mess, and I got rid of my wax paper, so I have a mess to clean up on my desk now. So it's going to leave kind of a little bit of a rough edge sometimes, right here where the edges of the plaster bandage are. So try to smooth that off if you can. If you can't, we'll file it down later. So that's a round object like that. Or if you want to make a bowl shape, or I have mask, if you want to do a mask, it's the same idea, except I have plastic wrap in the bowl so that it doesn't stick. I have two pieces there. So I'm going to lay this one. This one has a hard spot, so I have a spot that's not going to work. Like it got wet before. I'm going to spread that one around a little. And then I'm going to put this one down. And then the mold, I can let it sit and dry inside like this. And then once it's dry, I can remove the plastic from it. And the balloon, once it's dry, we can pop the balloon and pull it out. You can have a paper towel nearby to wipe your fingers if you need to every once in a while. Lastly, to add details to your plaster. So let's say I want to add some piles of paint on this. So I can take a piece of plaster bandage, get it wet, spread the plaster around, and then I can just build it up on top of there. And if it's not a big enough of a pile, I'm going to add some more here. So I can add a pile of plaster bandages to give it some detail and get that to start popping up. And then when it dries, it will have that extra little bump for a paint pile, because this is a palette underneath. Okay. The wax paper you keep for the entire project, one piece for the entire project. Please don't go get new pieces every time. If you want a hole in this project, make sure you make it before you cover it with plaster bandages, because it's hard to cut plaster bandages once it's dried. Okay, and that should do it for plaster bandages. I'm just going to continue building my project out of plaster bandages.